Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Jonathan Bailey Holland, who serves as the head of the Carnegie Mellon University's School of Music. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, so I'm so excited to have you on the show. Obviously, at Carnegie Mellon, there's extraordinary work going on. I want to kind of talk to you about this work that we all do in preparing artists. But before we delve into that, just wondering if you could kind of share for our audience, just generally the breadth of what's going on at Carnegie Mellon these days.
Sure. Well, let me start by saying that I've been here about 6 or 7 months. So in academic time, that's a very brief amount of time, but long enough that I've figured out a few things about what's going on here. It's a really interesting university in that, a lot of people know of Carnegie Mellon for its computer science and engineering and robotics, and really top-notch education in those areas, as well as an amazingly strong School of Music that's been a part of the university from day one. Andrew Carnegie, his view of education and what's important included the arts, as well as some of the other industrial areas that were part of the institution from the beginning. So we offer, a great conservatory style education with amazing artists, musicians, researchers. We also have fascinating technology and music programs. We have faculty from engineering and computer science who also teach in the music and technology program. We have a budding electronic music program that was started just a few years ago. And Carnegie Mellon is a school that's all about interdisciplinary study. So we have students who come in with interests in various areas, and instead of having a double degree, they actually have the ability to make a single degree in which they bring all of their interests together and create things that I can't even imagine at this point, but they're able to just sort of fully immerse themselves into study and imagine new ideas.
And, it's interesting, and this will probably delve into further kind of preparations, but do you see this interdisciplinary area as one that's just kind of only growing and just represents kind of what so many of our graduates will end up doing after they leave our institutions? How do you view that kind of role of the interdisciplinary work?
I absolutely think it's something that's going to continue to grow. In some ways, it's the institutions, and I think many institutions are going in this direction, acknowledging what's already been there, acknowledging the fact that we are complex individuals, and that at the age of 18, deciding on a single focus for the rest of your life is probably not how we all have navigated life post-college. So let's acknowledge it at the time of college and encourage exploration, encourage thinking beyond sort of the narrow parameters that perhaps we've had in place for so long. And I think it's true of artists in college. When they leave college, they branch out into so many different areas, benefiting from the creative approach that they've taken to their studies that benefits them in other fields. So if we're able to kind of train them at this point to really be successful, either as an artist or as anything else they imagine they want to be, I think that is a sign of where we've been and where we're definitely going in the world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it kind of raises this question that I always think about. Like, there's a lot of times it seems our students are embedded in the academy, and it's all about, and I think of a violinist back and in my studio, and what am I doing for this? What am I doing for my juries or the next audition for? And sometimes it's so hard to look beyond what I'm surrounded by in those moments. And just wondering, kind of, how do you feel about that in terms of, and how are you thinking about what things we can do in the academy to best prepare our students for being beyond or outside of the academy? Is that part of what you're trying to focus on?
Absolutely. I mean, coming from a conservatory education myself, like we obsess about the details. We want to get so perfect on every level, and we focus on certain repertoire with this idea of mastering the skill uh, to the point that perhaps we miss all of life that's going on around us. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that from the beginning and to actually encourage a sense of curiosity beyond that which you are doing. One example is just thinking about how we approach the idea of teaching the history of music and the context in which it lives in. As a conservatory student, we often just think about the history of music, meaning the history of Western classical music, which, as a classical performer, is absolutely essential to what we do. However, I think it's important to help students understand that it is one history of one type of music within this incredible array of musical traditions around the globe. And even just adjusting thought in that way, I think will change the student's perspective as they go through their studies, understanding that, yes, you're mastering a skill of a particular type, but there is so much more out there, and that you actually will benefit from having some awareness of some of the other cultures and traditions that have evolved concurrently with the one that you have chosen to be in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of also taking that to the realm of compositions, and your works have been performed around the country and world. Do you see any evolutions taking place as we think about composition, both preparing our students, but then also the world that they're going to experience when they leave our institutions?
1,000%. I think about my experience growing up. My parents loved music, loved listening to music. They weren't professional musicians, but there was music everywhere, and style wasn't so much an issue. It was just good music, whatever it happened to be. And I listened to the radio all the time, listened to recordings all of the time. Um, I find now that, in our lifetime, things have evolved from the 8-track tape that was in that we'd play in the car, to the cassette tape in the boombox, to the CD collection, of which I still have all my CDs, unfortunately, in boxes somewhere. And now there is no tangible object. It's either streaming through, something like Spotify, or it's YouTube, where people are going to listen to new albums by going to YouTube. And so that has changed the rate at which people are hearing music and the variety of music that people have access to. It's not just that you go to the library and find these amazing recordings, but you can just sort of type in things, and by accident, stuff will pop up that you've never heard of, that you may not have discovered otherwise. But also, the world of film music and video games, because those are so easy for people to access, has now influenced students. I see a lot of young composers who want to write orchestral music because they've heard a great score in a video game that they played. And just, what that music is and how it relates to the purpose for which it's written infuses what people think orchestral music is. And so a composer now has a different concept of what that is. But then also seeing live music and seeing how musicians are playing all different styles of music, and not really concerned with boundaries all that much anymore. I think all of that is going to push the language, the art form, in many different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of backing out from that, do you feel like as a whole, uh, where the academy is there, where we're preparing? The world seems to have evolved so quickly, as you've just described. And do you think we're evolving quickly enough with our training and preparation of students, or do you think we're there? Do you think we need to kind of speed up the evolution that we're doing ourselves in the academy? Any thoughts on?
Um, I think that's a complex question in terms of what's represented by the academy. I think different institutions have different priorities for what they want their students to engage with and come away from their education with. I think for more traditional conservatories, I think the foundational preparation that they provide is still essential. That music is still what it is. I think that that should be celebrated. I think for institutions who embrace a variety of styles of music, I think there's an imperative to break down what can be silos that exist between different programs and acknowledge that and a musician will benefit from their experience playing in the orchestra as much as they'll benefit from playing in the pep band or playing in the big band or playing in the the Indian ensemble. I mean, all of those are going to create a well-rounded musician. So I think maybe there's some work to be done. I think embracing technology and the effect it has had on how we hear music and conceive of music, perhaps we have to catch up to the reality that our students are coming in with already. So it depends on the institution and what we're looking for. But as the world evolves, I think we have to either stay on top of it or catch up to keep up with it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests, as you're doing this work and, and relatively recently coming into the leadership of this phenomenal role of one of our great institutions, there's got to be tough days, times where it's like, oh, how are we going to overcome some of these challenges? As a leader, as an academic, as an arts leader, are there mechanisms, or are there things that you turn to for inspiration, for strength when times are the most difficult?
I have always come back to music and to just listening and to remembering what it was that sparked my interest in becoming a musician and kind of devoting my life to the study of music. And to do that, I come back to the music that I love and let that sort of ground my decision making, ground my sense of responsibility and this role. And I think the skill of listening goes much beyond music to kind of just understanding who the people are that we're interacting with, why they've made these same choices, and how it is we're going to work together to continue to move forward in the right direction.
Jonathan Bailey Holland, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.